Hey guys, it's Brandon Gustafson. Welcome back to Assisted Living Investing. Happy to have you on the channel today. Today we're going to talk a little bit about setting up an in-person tour. Last time we talked about a virtual tour, what it is, how you can set it up, how you can make it an effective thing, how you can make it an effective experience. Today we're going to talk about doing an in-person tour rather than virtual and just kind of how it differs, things that you might want to look at when you're doing an in-person tour. A lot of the same things. You're going to want to be looking at a lot of the same things when you're doing an in-person versus a virtual, but there are a few things that you can see a little bit better when you're in person. So I just want to kind of make a note of those so that you're aware and you can kind of have a good experience as you're setting up and doing that in-person tour. So what is an in-person tour? An in-person tour is when you go there physically to the facility and you're walking around. It's kind of self-explanatory, as opposed to virtual where you're doing this through FaceTime or an app like that. Virtual or in-person tours, you're able to be there in person, you're looking around, and it gives you, again, a lot more experience and a lot more depth of what you're looking at that photos just can't give you, and things that you're looking at online or even a virtual tour, you're just not able to get that. Whereas with that in-person tour, you're able to really get in there, see the facility, walk through it, get to meet people, have conversations with them, see the residents, see how happy they are, those types of things. So an in-person tour is just really important. It's going to allow you to see some of those things that are going to help you find a good opportunity and help you feel comfortable that what you're looking at is the right opportunity for you and what you are trying to build. So why would you do an in-person tour? Like I mentioned, you're going to be able to meet the staff, you're going to meet the residents, you're going to see them, you're going to get a feel for what the culture actually looks like. You're going to be able to see, like, you're going to be able to feel, like, is there a draft in the window? Do you need something around the doors, to help out with any drafts? Looking at sinks, looking at toilets, seeing if there's any plumbing issues, walking through and physically being able to look at the HVAC and some of those larger appliances and making sure that everything is good. So that's reasons that you would do an in-person tour of a facility. Another reason why you would do an in-person tour of a facility is you're able to get there physically. You're able geographically, actually, to get to the facility and see kind of what types of amenities are around there, what types of grocery stores, is there a hospital nearby, those types of things. If it's something like, for me, investing out of state, these were places that I had never been before. So being able to see those types of things is really important. But it's also important to see those things because the chances of you buying the house next door to you, turning it into a facility, or that it is a facility and you're purchasing it, are pretty slim. So even if it's in the city that you are familiar with, getting there and kind of driving around and seeing what's going on and near the facility is going to be beneficial, so that you're able to kind of put out there and say, yeah, there's a grocery store here, there's a hospital within 5 minutes. You could go and see this big department store that's there. There's a nice park, there's a dog park. Like, those types of things are things that are going to be valuable to you as you're marketing the property. But it's also good for you to see and get a good feel for what is near the facility, so that you can make sure that's something that you're comfortable with. So reasons to not do an in-person tour. And a lot of this I covered. These are the reasons why you would do a virtual tour. So the reasons you would not do an in-person tour is it's just too far away and it's really hard to get there. We might be going through a pandemic like COVID. Another reason that you might not be able to do an in-person tour, but a virtual tour might work, is what I've found is sellers, especially of assisted living, they don't want their residents to know that they are selling. And so they kind of hide that. They try to do it. I've had to go in and pretend that I am placing a grandparent when I'm doing an in-person tour of a facility, just so that it doesn't feel like I'm selling this. I'm having people come in and walk through it. And so you want to keep that in mind as well when you're doing that in-person tour, that the residents might not know. And you don't want to shake people's routines up. You don't want to worry them. I mean, you might go in, do the tour of the facility, and you just might have a bad feeling about it. And you don't want to create an atmosphere and disrupt the culture in the facility and things like that. So just make sure that you are being aware of those things and being professional with it and treating things with care. these are people's lives that you're that you're dealing with. You want to make sure that everybody is happy, residents, seller, staff. Just make sure everybody is kind of on the same page, and make sure that you are respectful of them and their current situation. So how do you set up an in-person tour of the facility? So you're going to work through your broker or the listing agent or broker and get that set up. You're going to kind of coordinate there. I know with houses, if you're looking at purchasing like just a single family home, for example, there are apps and things that you can do this with. But because you are buying something that's more of a commercial property, the relationships that you're building with your broker, the listing agent, those are going to be key. And that's kind of how you're going to have to communicate and set up this in-person tour. It's going to take a little bit longer. There's going to be a lot of back and forth on email, coordinating schedules and things like that. So be patient with it, but that's going to be the best way to set that up. And again, just like we talked about with the virtual tour, you want to make sure that there's plenty of time for Q&A session. Oftentimes the seller is not going to want to do that inside the facility. Even if they have an office, they might be open to it. A lot of times, like I was talking about, the residents, the staff, they don't know that they're selling. And so they're not as comfortable having those conversations at the facility. But if you said, hey, could I take you to lunch after we do the walkthrough and we can talk about things and get a little more specific into the facility and its needs and things like that, things that I saw. In my experience, they're very open to having those conversations, going out to lunch with you, having a conversation. It's very reasonable to ask for that. And you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the seller. You're going to be working with this person for several months, and having a good relationship with them is going to be key in closing the deal, but also having a good transition. I've harped on this a lot. The culture at a facility, you want to maintain that. You don't want to rock the world of the residents that are living there. These people, like, this is their life. They live at this facility, and you want to make sure that it's a smooth transition so that everything is good, so that they're happy and that their families are happy, and that you maintain that good reputation that exists at a facility and helps you be successful. So having that conversation, that continuity, and making sure there's going to be a good transition is going to be key. So that would be the other thing. I would make sure that you have plenty of time built in, that there's time for that Q&A session, whether that's at the facility or taking them out to lunch or to dinner after you do your walkthrough, so that you can, answer those questions that you have as you've gone and walked through the facility. So a few good questions that you can ask as you're doing that in-person tour is it could be while you're walking through the facility, or it could be that meeting that you do afterwards. Or things like, what are some major repairs that you've done recently, and can you show them to me? Are there any major repairs that need to be done, and can you show those to me? Making sure that you're being able to see those. I would definitely ask about an HOA. If there's an HOA, a homeowners association at the facility, making sure that you're understanding of what that is and what it entails, fees that are associated with it, any bylaws that you need to be aware of. And then if there is an HOA, having a conversation with that HOA to make sure that you're able to continue operating your assisted living facility, that there won't be any issues there. That is going to be key. And it's something that you as a buyer want to make sure that you are aware of, because it is something that could just throw a big wrench into your plans. We had an experience like that with our Idaho facility, where we were a little worried. Our bank was very worried that the HOA was going to, because they had in the bylaws you couldn't have this type of a business. What we found is that we were grandfathered in under previous bylaws, and so we were okay. But we had to get that clarified and make sure that we were going to be okay doing that. Whereas, if they had said, nope, sorry, you're not able to operate that facility, then we just have a house, and that's not what we wanted. So make sure that you're having those conversations with the buyer, understanding what the situation is with an HOA. It could make or break your deal. It really could. You want to ask about the furniture, fixtures, and equipment that's included in the sale, so the FF&E. You want to ask them kind of what's the condition, and this part you'll kind of get as you do a home inspection. You want to see what the condition is of the roof, of the windows, of the HVAC system, of the flooring, cosmetic things like the paint, making sure that things are properly sealed and maintained, like windows and doors and things like that. So those are things that you're going to want to ask them about, and also make sure that you're looking at, and then certainly have a home inspection on the facility to make sure that you're comfortable with some of those things that are going to be a larger cost to you if you need to replace them or they need to be repaired relatively quickly. The other one to make sure you're looking at is a fire suppression system. So we talked about this in the virtual tour, but if they have a fire suppression system, you want to look at that, ask them to kind of walk you through the process of how they have it set up. Do they have everything? Who's it monitored by? Is there a separate phone line that you're going to have in place for that? Is it monitored by a cell phone? Is it monitored by radio? Kind of what's the process there that they have for their fire suppression system? Is it maintained? Has it been maintained properly? Has it been tested, the backflow and everything? That's something that also is key, because if that is broken, it's going to be quite costly to replace or repair. If there is not one, it's something that you're going to have to get. So that's going to be a huge expense. So that's something you want to be aware of going into it. If you're looking at renovating a home and putting in, creating your own facility, that fire suppression system is going to be something that you want to be aware of and make sure that you are following all the rules that the state has for that, and then getting quotes on how much it's going to cost to put that in. It's going to be key to making sure that that is there, because in my experience, that's a requirement, and that you want to make sure that you are looking at and getting taken care of. So make sure you're looking at that fire suppression system. The other thing are going to be major appliances, so washer, dryer, fridge, stove, range, microwave, those types of things that are just bigger. They might be a little more costly to repair or replace, making sure that they're in a good spot. Is there a standalone freezer? Is it a chest? Is it a stand-up freezer? Is it functioning? Is everything, like, how are those things? How recently were they replaced? Are they having any issues with it? Is it a commercial washer and dryer? Have they had to have those replaced recently? Kind of what's the situation there? Those are types of things that you want to make sure that you are aware of as you're going through it. The other one would be the AC units. So one of our facilities actually doesn't have any AC units. It's in Colorado. It's up in the mountains. It's quite cool, actually. It's really nice. So it doesn't need an AC unit, but it has heat. Our one in Idaho needs AC, and the rooms have individual units. And so what's the status of those? Are they well maintained? Are they in working order? Kind of what's the situation with them? And so that you're aware of those types of things as you're doing a walk around, making sure that those things are, that they look good, that they look properly maintained, that there's not weeds and bushes and things growing up into the AC units and that type of stuff. So those are some other things that you want to look at as you're doing that in-person tour of the facility and your walk around. A few things that you want to make sure that you are taking notice of as you're doing that in-person tour, as you're doing your walk around. I've mentioned a few of these already, but the condition of the flooring, of the paint, of the trim on doors, on windows, things like that. You want to make sure that those are good, that there's no water or mold damage or things like that. It's okay if they have them. You just want to be aware that those things are there. I would say it's not a deal breaker to find something like that. But you just want to make sure that you're aware of it, so that when you're doing your underwriting, you can build in, I've got to do $500 in cosmetic repairs to make sure that the facility looks nice, that it has a fresh coat of paint, that we've taken out all the mold, or whatever it is that might be there. It's not a deal breaker, but you want to be aware of those things so that you can build it into your contingency, to build it into your funding plan. Those types of things are going to help you be successful and have a good house. Just kind of get a gauge on the happiness of the residents and the staff as you're walking through. Are they just kind of head down people and they don't want to talk to anybody, or are they they're engaging and they're is it a place where you'd want your grandparents to go? Same with staff. You want to make sure that there's a good culture there. You can always change culture, but it's going to be difficult. These people have already been there for years, months, and trying to come in and change everything like that is just going to be difficult. And so making sure that there's already a good culture there, a good base, is going to be key. In my opinion, that's going to help you be successful and help you move forward with things. You'll also want to just kind of get a feel for the layout, the flow of the house. Are there big living spaces? And are there places where everybody can get? Are the hallways big? Is it carpeted? Is it hardwood floor? kind of what does that look like, and how does that flow? Does it make sense? Are you going to have to make any renovations? Are you going to have to make any improvements to the house and make it so that it's something that you're more comfortable with? Just be aware of those types of things as well. You also want to be aware of the size of the residence rooms. There are going to be size restrictions that you'll want to check on with the state for how many residents can stay in a room that is 10 by 10 or 8 by 8. You just kind of want to, you don't per se need to take a tape measure and measure them, but you want to get a feel for them. If there are 2 beds in a room, does it look like, yeah, that looks right, that this facility has been doing things correctly? This is a shared bedroom, there's 2 rooms in it, two beds in it, that's okay? Or is it like a closet and they're fitting 2 beds in there, and when state comes and does an inspection, they're going to be like, nah. So make sure that you're kind of aware of. Then in addition to that, just kind of shared rooms versus private rooms, and kind of what the breakdown is of that, and how that works. The last thing that I wanted to say on this one is, should you do an in-person or a virtual tour or both? Neither. Kind of what's the thought there? In my experience, especially investing out of state, doing a virtual tour to start off with and get a feel for things and having a conversation with the seller has been a great tool without me committing to going and driving 6 to 12 hours to get to a facility. So we start off with that virtual tour. My experience has been it's either the facility administrator or the owner that's doing that. And so you're able to have some good conversations with those people. So start off with that and then do I really like doing an in-person tour. It gives me a lot of really good exposure to the house and what it looks like and what the needs really are, and having some FaceTime with the different people at the facility. Like, that is extremely valuable. So, but if you're able to do both of them, that's what I would suggest. I think doing both is reasonable. I think it shows that you're really interested, you're really committed to the facility, to the purchase, to working with the seller. I think is going to be key in helping you be successful in purchasing the facility. And so, yeah, I would do both if you're able to. I think that's a really good idea. It's never going to hurt you to do a lot of due diligence and having multiple tours, multiple types of tours, having conversations, getting a home inspection. Like, all of those things are a really good idea. Are there any instances where I would say not do those tours? I would say probably not, unless there are certain circumstances where, we're in a pandemic and the person doesn't have internet for some reason. And so you can't get there in person, you can't get there virtually. I'd be really hesitant to buy something like that. So I would probably say no. Where you might not do one is if you are at a higher scale than what we are talking about here, residential assisted living. If you're buying a big portfolio of commercial facilities, there's 10 facilities and they're huge and they're kind of spread out geographically, and getting there in person to every single one of those facilities is just going to be difficult. Maybe trying to set up some virtual tours of facilities at that point would be good. Or some of them you might just have to accept because they're a part of a portfolio, and as long as you've got one or two diamonds in the rough there, two jewels in that portfolio, you're probably going to be fine because they're going to carry everything, and then you can make the cosmetic updates to the other facility. So really just going to kind of depend on your threshold of risk and what you want to do. I would suggest getting in and doing those tours of the facility. So that's the video for today. I hope that was helpful to you, how to set up an in-person tour, how to do an in-person tour, the importance of doing it versus a virtual tour, and how that works. Next time we're going to be talking about why touring a facility is important. So we're going to kind of be recapping what we talked about these last 2 videos and going through that a little bit. And I've been getting some comments on things like my calculator. Make sure you comment down below, but I'm going to do like a how to use that calculator, and I'll share that resource with you here in a couple of videos. And get that out there so that you can see it. But make sure you like, comment, subscribe to the channel. I'm happy that you're here. I hope you're learning a lot. Make sure you comment. Let me know what I can do to help you out on your journey, what resources I can give you, what questions I can help you answer. The other thing I want to make sure that I point out, I've got videos on TikTok, which are these just kind of condensed down. So if you don't have the full 15 minutes to watch a video. You only have a minute and a half. Go over there and watch those. It's going to give you a lot of the same content. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, on Instagram, and then if you join my Facebook group, we'll have conversations over there. I want to make that a really good community where we can ask questions and you can get input from other people in the community. So make sure you join those other resources, those other social media platforms. It's been great talking to you today, and I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching. Have a good one. See ya.